Hey everybody, Will Brink here, brinkzone.com. Actually doing this video today as a pre-recorded versus a live stream because I just wanted to get some information out, and streaming wise I wasn't really set up to answer questions and all that on this. I just wanted to get some info out. As you can see, I didn't even have the energy to set up my green screen, so you're just going to have to look at my messy office and sporting my homeless pirate look today. But it's been a long week, and it's Thursday, right? Yeah, Thursday. I was going to say Friday. That shows you how not completely with it I am, but I've just been really buried in reading research and dealing with some stuff. So on to that. Normally, I mean, I usually talk about my own message I'm trying to get out, whatever that may be, whether it's, whatever, fitness related, bodybuilding, products, whatever. I rarely, if maybe ever, I can't remember any time that I've actually done a video to work on getting somebody else's message out. But I'm going to make an exception here because I think it's important, and that's in regard to Bill Phillips and his recent experience with COVID, which we'll get to in a moment. So to back up just a little bit, of course, now anybody, of course, that has been around, read all the magazines and was into bodybuilding, fitness and all that back in the day, all knows who Bill Phillips is. So if you know who Bill Phillips is, you can just hold on for a minute and let me explain to the rest of the audience, people watching us who may not know who Bill was in the industry, who are maybe a little younger, just weren't paying attention back in the day. So Bill, let's see. So Bill basically was the owner, CEO of EAS, which was a very popular, successful supplement company in the 90s. He published the magazine Muscle Media, which I used to write for. He wrote the very popular book Body for Life. That was a big time seller for him, which was a sort of a weight loss book where he really took the sort of principles and stuff that worked in sports nutrition / bodybuilding and applied it to the general public, and it did really well for people. And he's done a whole lot of other things, but that's what he's best known for those who just want a quick update. He also worked with the Denver Broncos. I don't know why the magazine or the newspaper articles kind of focused on that. Maybe they thought, using the Denver Bronco name would work best for people. So that's Bill in a quick nutshell. And I can't claim to have been like a close friend of Bill's. I communicated with Bill, of course, when I wrote for his magazine. We used to, go back and forth a bit on the fax machine. Kind of a funny story. Bill used to communicate by fax machine. Pre-email, you didn't call, so I think he wanted to save his time. But the way he would use the fax machine was basically like an email. He would type his fax, and you'd get a fax, and you'd type one back and send it back, and you'd go back and forth and have these ongoing conversations, very similar to an email conversation. And I hung out with him a few times at some shows where he invited me, to post Olympia dinner. He rented out Morton's once, and that was a pretty good time. So I know him, but I can't claim to be like close friend of his. I'm much better friends with his brother Sean, who sorry, I'm reaching for a pen. I'm much better friends with his brother Sean, who I have kept in contact with over the years, and we do communicate, and we meet up at conferences and all that. So I know his brother Sean quite a bit better, and someday I'll have Sean on this show as a guest, which is but he's also he's just dealing with a lot of stuff between his brother being as sick as he was and loss of a close friend recently, Dr. Tom Bailea, who I knew. Anyway, so. If you're not aware, again, bring anybody up to speed. Bill Phillips recently got very, very ill from COVID. And when I say ill, I mean, he's really lucky to be alive level of ill. Most people who were not already at least in the shape he was in and had the muscle he had to give up and whatever would have checked out level of ill. He spent over 30 days, almost like a month and a half in a medically induced coma. Intubated and, really bad. And he has just finally gotten out of the hospital. Now, I'm not getting my information from where a lot of people getting their information are just repeating this third-party stuff because they also saw it in a newspaper or magazine. I was aware of this situation sort of ongoing through Sean and family. And of course, not my place to mention anything until they were okay with it being discussed. So Bill is out of the hospital and home, and he has a very long road ahead of himself to get his health back, and hopefully get his life back. But again, I think a lot of people don't really appreciate that. There's some people, of course, that, let's say there's the people that get really sick, and that's a small percent. And then there's people who just have it and they get through it and that's the end of it. I don't think a lot of people appreciate that there's a whole lot of people in between those two groups that are really beat down and have a long, long road ahead of them, months to years, to recoup their health in whatever area of damage that they suffered. So I'm not going to go down the long list of what Bill's damage is and all that. And I don't even know if he's fully aware of it yet, and he's got a lot of tests to do. And I will bring in a newspaper, one of the newspaper articles from the Denver Post, which will have more info, and we'll use that, as I have in some of my other stuff, as a little bit of a guide. Let me do that now. And then what we're going to get into briefly is what happened, which we're covering now. And then I think what a lot of people are going to what people want to know is why. Why did it happen? And I'm going to give my best guess on that. And basically what I'm here to do is forward Bill's message to people, because Bill is a little bit busy trying to get his health back. But he's already, typical of Bill. What Bill has done most of his professional life is gotten messages out to people. That's what he's done through his magazine, through his books, through his Facebook page. Bill's goal has always been to get his message out to people to better their lives, and again, whether get in better shape or lose weight or be more successful or what have you. So I'm gonna do my best to cover those bases and finish with basically what Bill's message is after this horrific experience. For those who are not aware. So let's just going to bring in this page here, and let's see, where is it? Share screen. Give me a hold on there a second. Why do I not have this? You guys may have to wait just a second. Oh, hold on. There it is. Okay, give me a second here. Chrome tab. Sorry, some days I get a little bit messed up on the tech, but it's coming. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. And that guy in the right-hand corner is part of their webpage. It has nothing to do with me, and I don't know. It's annoying that they would have that there. Let's see if I can get rid of him. Hold on, because that's very distracting to me. I don't know about you guys, but obviously the Denver Post is trying to sort of multi-faceted, Okay. So sorry about that. Jeez, this has been something here. All right. So that's Bill, still in the hospital. He's, about to get out. The man is only my age, mid-50s. He's lost over 70 pounds of muscle, which he's already put some back on, per his wife, Maria, who I do have some communication with and have been talking a little bit. So that's the article. Let's go through basically what happened to him briefly, and then you guys can look at it. I'm not going to go in big depth because you can look this up. So but again, what I want to get to is more why it happened, because I think people have a lot of questions, and it happened to him because he was not aware of some realities that he is unfortunately now aware of. So, let's see, as we work our way down here. So a little more than 2 weeks ago, 56-year-old was medically induced coma and hooked up to a ventilator to help him breathe because of coronavirus. He spent 47 days intubated and lost 70 pounds during his time at St. Anthony's Hospital in Lakewood. Now, remember, very few people have 70 pounds of muscle to lose. This is why your muscle mass, which maybe some don't realize, but your muscle mass is basically a repository for your immune system. One of the reasons that carrying, a fair amount of muscle, it doesn't have to be, major bodybuilding muscle, but one of the major benefits of having at least adequate muscle, especially as you age, is that muscle is a direct repository for your immune system to run on, which is why besides inactivity and such, but one of the reasons that people lose muscle at a heartbreaking rate when you have special things like infections, viral infections where the immune system is working, double time, is your muscle mass is literally a reservoir for your immune system to use for energy and fuel and so forth. So that's one of the major reasons why everybody, no matter who they are, should be lifting weights and maintaining their muscle mass. and avoiding sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss, but another topic for another day. So basically, Bill goes on to say, Phillips said he chose not to get the COVID vaccine because he had had the virus before and thought the antibodies would be enough to protect him from infection. He says, I did not get vaccinated because I made a mistake. He said, during an interview in the hospital, I thought since I had had COVID in January 2020, I was immune to it. Now, keep that date in mind because this is where we're going to get to the why of it. He added that mistake came close to costing me my life. Sorry, so there's the rest of the details here are below. Again, for those who don't know Bill, I mean, this picture may spur some memories there of him. He was a very well-known guy and still has been very, very active in the fitness and health community and all that. So let's see. Let me get back to this. So I guess I can just take that out. Bill's logic, which I can't blame him for, honestly, from his point of view, remember, he's a healthy guy. He works out. He's, in his mid-50s. He already had COVID. Now, keep that in mind, diagnosed COVID. And he figured, I'm all set. I'm good. I don't need to get vaccinated. Now, let me stop here and say the vaccination topic, we're going to go, this is Bill's experience, and we're going to go with Bill's advice and how he feels about it. You can do whatever you want with the information, one way or the other. Okay, I'm passing along Bill's advice on this. I'm not really interested in a debate on where people want to stand or don't want to stand on that topic. My goal here is to explain what happened to him, explain the why of what probably happened to him, and then we're gonna we're gonna go with what Bill's advice was, which I think you obviously have a pretty good handle on that, and you take it where you want to. Okay, you do you, is what, as they say. You're the one who has to pay the price for it one way or the other, and we'll again, and I'll leave it at that. So. And I'll give my personal recs and thoughts on this, at the end too. So back to the why of it. So understandably, I can't really blame Bill for taking that position, maybe not knowing a couple of facts, which he has learned the hard way later on. But, if Bill had, most people who get in real trouble with COVID, are pretty well-known groups, statistically speaking. That is, they have comorbidities, and a comorbidity is, what would basically be an additional confounding, a condition that would make you more prone to getting really sick. Most of them are, they're well known. Obesity is one. That's one keeps coming up. And unfortunately, in the US at least, we have a lot of obese people, diabetes, various immune system, dysfunction, being over, I think, 60 or 65 because, your immune system does get weaker as you age and so forth. So the usual suspects of people that get really ill, from COVID are fairly well identified, which is not to say that there are some outliers, which basically would be Bill. So understandably, Bill assumed having COVID, basically he's young or youngish. He's not young, but he's youngish. He's in good health and all that. Basically, he was all set. And I don't blame him for that. I get it. There are some people, that if I saw some person, again, who was morbidly obese, they had diabetes, they had heart disease, and got really, really sick and didn't get, let's say, vaccinated. And they were like, I got to admit, my empathy would be like, well, look, you knew you were taking a major risk there. And, you're in that high risk group. And yeah, you really probably should have got that done. I get where Bill was coming from on this. So I just want to say I wouldn't want to ever be accused of victim blaming here on this particular aspect. However, now we're going to get to some why of it. His assumption on that one area was obviously faulty. So here's why. A couple of things. Natural immunity does wane. It is not indefinite. This is a very normal and typical for this type of virus. Which is one reason, why, if you had the flu last year and the flu is coming around this year, you don't have protection from the flu, or if you do, you have very minimal protection from the flu. That's due to the type of virus it is. Different viruses are different. Some viruses, of course, if you are exposed to them and you live through it, you actually can have pretty close to a lifelong immunity from it. This is not the case with this type of virus, and it's not the case with a lot of viruses. So again, some people make too much of a deal out of that from a sort of acting like they understand the nature of viruses or virology and so forth. So when so natural immunity is actually quite robust and quite strong for a while from a specific variant. So if you had the original variant, which he did, if you notice the date, that's would have been the alpha. You have a decent case of it. Again, there's some nuances here I'm trying not to go into because I don't want to take this a long time, and I don't want to get deep into the woods on the science. But the level of natural immunity one gets also seems to depend on the case that they got originally. So people that had a very mild case don't seem to have as robust immunity as people that had a more severe case, obviously can get real sick and so forth. There's a lot going on there, but let's just average this out and say that natural immunity, if you had the original virus, is quite robust. It was as good, if not better, than any vaccine, and you were probably good to go if you had been exposed to alpha, when it came out. But they wane. Natural immunity wanes, as does the vaccine immunity wanes. So that's one issue. He has made an assumption that was, because of the amount of time that went by, was wrong. Another issue is that variant to variant, that immunity does not always apply very well. So even if you had alpha and 6 months or 8 months later, immunity is waning to the original and you get exposed to Delta, which I will tell you, due to the infectious level of Delta, the R value of of Delta, at this point, it's not a matter of if, but when you're going to get exposed. Let me just let you know. We're all going to get exposed to that one. So I will say that alpha, you could say, maybe with doing all the proper precautions, you might get through it. And a lot of people didn't get it, or not a lot, but enough people, went through. Beta is sorry, God, I'm messing up my variants. Delta is another matter. So that's one mistake. Two mistakes. Difference is the variant. So if you had alpha and you had, let's say you were exposed just by bad luck to Delta within a short period of time, like a couple of months, you would have a good immunity to Delta. You don't have as good a variant to variant. The immunity is not as strong, but definitely better than nothing. So those who had the original that had a robust immune response had a good, would probably be highly resistant to Delta also, but not as resistant as if they got the same strain. And that is also showing the same for Delta. People that have had Delta that got through it and had a good immune response to it have a good, what am I thinking of? Are pretty much safe from Delta. Let me just say, as safe as you would be with a vaccine, it is as good, if not better. In fact, there was some Israeli data that just came out literally a couple days ago that found that natural immunity from Delta was much better than it was from the vaccines. Now, don't jump into conclusions from that. I'm saying don't make a big deal out of that. There's a lot, again, there are some nuances with that statement I just made. It is also counter to some of the other data that's out there. And there's some reasons for it, and I'm not going to get into it. But FYI, if you get a COVID, a variant of COVID, and you have a robust immune response to it, and it's not a big deal and you get through it, you are probably very well protected from Delta for a lengthy amount of time. How much, again, is not clear. But I think 6 months, good robust immunity, and then it starts to wane seems pretty clear. But remember, we haven't had Delta around long enough to be completely sure about that as far as the U.S. experience is concerned. So there's a double whammy there. Just because you had COVID last year or whatever, and enough time has gone by, making assumptions that you will not get sick again is incorrect. And obviously, Bill's experience demonstrates that in spades. So there's a couple of mistakes made, and unfortunately, just a lot of misinformation, bad information, and assumptions made. I do think the best way to approach a basic understanding of it is to think of it, again, more like the flu, how the flu behaves. That is in terms of, variants coming through, or even strains. I mean, strains and variants are two different issues, but again, I want to keep this general to kind of think about, well, now, because the natural immunity and the vaccine immunity does wane, this is why they recommend that. This is where that booster thing is coming in. Again, like it or not, but there is good science to it. I think, again, for those people, this is where we come back to how robust your response is. Now, people with a healthy immune response that are younger, and so forth, that have say have got vaccinated or had a pretty miserable case of COVID at one time, will have a longer lasting, more robust natural immunity to it. Now, people that are older, people that have had immune compromise, do not have as robust an effect or a response to it, and therefore it wanes quicker. And that's where this is why they recommend the booster for people that are higher risk, and why they recommend, and here's where we get sort of back to Bill and other people, even people that had COVID over 6 months ago, they recommend at least getting one of the 2-shot protocols to bring you up to speed. People that already had COVID 6 months ago or longer that had a different variant will have at least some immunity, and a 1 shot of the 2-shot protocol will probably bring you up to about, where you need to be. Now, the studies are also quite clear that those who have natural immunity plus vaccination are the most protected. And again, this seems rather, to me at least, this seems rather kind of, obvious. But again, I get it. There's a lot of noise to the signal out there, and it's really hard to know who to believe, and so forth. So why? Now, here's where things get a little bit weird and a little interesting. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm going to give my personal thought on the answer, and then I'm going to leave it. So I've heard from a handful of people now, and Bill, again, is unfortunately the worst example of this, but I've heard from a handful of people now, some of which I have shared on my Facebook page, that had alpha and were minor to moderately sick. But when they were exposed to Delta, God, I haven't had all my coffee. So when they were exposed to Delta, they got much sicker. Now, again, Bill, understandably, and these other people, understandably, said, well, look, okay, even if I don't have full immunity, I've had it before. It was sucky, but, I got through it. They got really sick. Several of them, not even Bill, were hospitalized. They did get out of the hospital. They just needed, some additional oxygen, and they were fine. But, again, as I mentioned earlier, they're in that group of people that are in that middle ground that are just really suffering. They are having a lot of trouble with brain fog and energy levels and just not feeling well and so on and so forth. And those people have been going on for months with that. But that is, obviously, and I just want to say that all of those people that I know, including Bill, said, if I had known it was going to be that bad second time around, I wish I'd got the vaccine. That has been universal. Just FYI, take it, you take that where you want to take that. So why, this is the little bit of a mystery to me that I'm trying to dig down into a little bit. Why is the second go around so far been that much worse for people that already had it? And this is an area that's really hard to measure. Here's my guess. I'm gonna go with a guess on this, because biologically, from a strictly physiological point of view, none of the answers that I have, that I've looked into in papers that I've read, make a lot of sense. So this is where I think we're getting into here, is the area that nobody likes to talk about and look at, is human behavior. The problem with a lot of studies, whatever it may be, anytime you're dealing with people and you have to try to adjust for human behavior, researchers hate it, and understandably, because when people say it's like herding cats is 1,000 million times easier than dealing with humans. When you look at even when you look at like nutrition studies, and you try to get people to follow a workout and self-report what they ate, self-reported dietary things are almost useless, because people are their behavior, remembering what they ate, being honest about what they ate, and so on and so forth, is so difficult. So when you start to, anytime in research, and you start to and you look at these big studies that are correlational epidemiological studies, and you're trying to make some adjustments, incorporate human behavior, it's a mess. So this is my guess as to what happened. People who had COVID before made the assumption, I'm all set, and pretty much just let their guard down and did whatever they wanted to do, right? And this is not as well known, as well understood, but among virologists and infectious disease people and stuff, they understand how this works. The initial dose that you get of virus, of COVID, specifically COVID, but other viruses in general, this is called the viral load or the inoculate. The amount of inoculate you get to begin with determines quite a bit how bad your case is going to be, how bad a case you have. And again, think about it. It makes perfect sense, right? Think of just the basic, let's call poison, right? A small amount of poison is obviously going to give you less trouble than a lot of poison in one dose, if you think of it like that. So what they call the inoculate dose, which leads to the viral load, is what has a great deal to do with how sick you get. And this makes perfect sense. And I suspect that those people who had COVID before probably let their guard down a bit and maybe were not as cautious and taking the precautions they needed to take to avoid, getting a big dose from somebody. And my guess is that Bill and these other people, probably took in a much larger dose inoculate than they did the first time, and their viral load was just that much higher. Now, we also know that the viral load of Delta is higher to boot in a number of areas. So that's my theory, or that's my hypothesis, to use the proper science terms, not really theory, on that. I could be wrong, but I just have not really been able to find another good reason. I mean, my original fear was, well, does having COVID before somehow like prime your immune system to like overshoot, its response the next time you're exposed to another variant? And boy, that would be a really bad scenario. I don't think that's the case, though. Again, not impossible, but I just don't think that's the case. I think this comes down to good old human behavior, which unfortunately is really difficult to not impossible to account for. And I don't know if it with this particular aspect. Just FYI, I now know a handful of people who had COVID who got Delta, and it was a lot worse. Like I say, for Bill, obviously, a whole boatload worse. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have not covered. So to finish, to forward Bill's message while he gets better, Bill's message is he made a mistake, and he is really trying to get the word out to people as far as he's concerned that get the vaccine, get vaccinated, don't end up like him. I will finish my own message by saying that I think that vaccines are a tool in the toolbox. I think they have a place. I will say I do not think we're going to vaccine our way out of this. And I think there's a lot that people could do and should be doing in addition to, the vaccine situation, whether they do or they do not get vaccinated. There's a lot people could be doing as far as supplements and other things. Obviously, just working on your health, of course, losing weight. You've had all year to do that, exercising and so forth. I will post my article below on some of those strategies and where I think there's a huge missing opportunity in medicine that is not being addressed to dealing with COVID. So that's Bill's message. That's what he's telling people. I will leave to say that the people in Bill's situation, that is someone like him who, like say, healthy, active, under 60, had COVID before, and so forth. Statistically speaking, the number of people who are going to get as sick as he did are quite low. We've got to be honest here. However, do you want to roll that dice? The question is, do you want to roll that dice? The answer there for me isn't fuck no. Sorry, I'm throwing the French out there or whatever. The answer to me is hell no. I'm going to use every tool in the toolbox to avoid that personally. And again, you do you. I'll accept whatever you do for you. I'm only going to supply the info, and I'm going to forward Bill's message to as many people as I can. And I wish you all well-being and safety. If you have real questions and stuff that I can answer underneath, I'll answer them. If I see dogmatic hyperbole type stuff, I didn't do this video to debate anything pro or con vaccine per se. And if I have to, I'll just, turn off the comments. I'd hope not to. So if we can make that happen, that's on you guys, up to you. So stay well, and I'll see you guys on the Brink Zone, and get better, Bill.